Hey everyone, this is Stuart Crawford. Welcome to another great show here on the MSP show on Blog Talk Radio. I'd like to thank the folks at Blog Talk Radio for this great platform that they give us to do podcasts and share all over the internet. We have a special announcement. I'm not sure it's going to be ready yet by the time this show goes to air, but we're going to be, I think next week we'll have our announcement of our special skill that we'll be releasing. I'm not going to say what platform it's on because it's going to alert it in my office and I'm going to have all these devices speaking to me, but watch out for that next week. Anyway, the MSP show is brought to you on Blog Talk Radio, and we do this every week, bringing vendors and people that can help you with marketing and sales, and also tell the story of managed service providers. And today we got a great story coming out of British Columbia, Canada. Deron Coleman is with Coleman Technologies, based in Langley, British Columbia. And Darren's been working with me for quite a few years, and he's got a really good story. We're going to talk about where he started off into, speaking at a recent well-known educational facility facility in Massachusetts. So, Darren, welcome to the MSP show today. Hope things are well on the west coast of Canada these days.
Things are great, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
So, Darren, tell us a little bit about Coleman Technologies, what you bring to the Vancouver, Langley, Lower Mainland, marketplace.
Sure. Well, we provide managed services, as do, many of your clients. But let me just tell you a little bit about, sort of how I got here, where things came from, just so I can sort of put things in perspective. Stuart, when I graduated from college, I did what all college students should do. I secured an internship with a good, honest company, but, they made it quite clear that I was getting an internship and not a job, and that I should have no expectations of employment. I really didn't. But, what I did have was, my small town values and work ethics. And that must have been enough, because after a few short months, they hired me. This was with an IT company in Surrey, very close to me. And then things got interesting, because after being with that firm for a couple of years, they asked me if I wanted to buy it. And of course, they only had one condition, and that was that I had to, honor all of their existing service obligations for which they'd already paid. So, that really wasn't a very big obligation. And then that's really how I got started with Coleman Technologies. I took over from another IT company that was doing break fix. And over time, I converted that company into a managed IT services company that we have here today.
It sounds like many of the same things we hear from a lot of you folks. You took over the running of this break fix company in British Columbia. Some people, lucky. My story was I just happened to got out of the military, got a job as a consultant, and built my own way up to starting my own firm with two great guys too. A lot of guys like us, Darren, kind of stumble into this business. But I'm assuming when you first got started, you weren't necessarily a marketing and sales focused person. Were you like most of us? Were you technical at that time? And then, tell us about that journey, the start of the journey anyway, from realizing that you had, maybe shift gears from being a technical minded individual to, heck, I got to grow this company now. So what am I going to do?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure many people who are in the computer business, they got into it because they know IT, they love IT, they anything technical you're sort of drawn to. And that was just, I got involved in it because, I liked the Commodore 64. I liked, my IBM PS2. And I really thought, hey, this is a good job if someone will pay me to come fix their devices. And I really didn't see any sort of business. I just saw it as a way to make money. And the further I got into it, I just found that I was working more and more and I was making a little bit more money. But it really wasn't, a business. It wasn't something that I could see enjoying long term. And there's many years in between here, but what happened, I met you, Stuart. You really got me involved in the whole marketing. You came to Vancouver, we connected through LinkedIn, and I said, hey, this is a guy I need to connect with, because I could see your vision for what you had for my clients based on what you've done for some of your other clients. And I think I connected right after our LinkedIn event, and then we started the marketing, and really that's changed my business in a dramatic way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back when that was. Was that the one we did at near the P&E there in Vancouver?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It was down near the P&E. In fact, you had connected with me on LinkedIn, and I almost didn't go. And one of my longtime staff members, I've had this guy, Kevin Smith, with me for about 18 years. And I said, what do you think? Do you feel like driving down to Vancouver and seeing this guy, Stuart Crawford? And he said, yeah, why not? That's how it got started.
Well, that's great. Now, so there's a little bit of incentive for folks to come to our upcoming workshops. We have workshops. We just finished some workshops in Dallas and Houston this week, and we're getting ready to go to Baltimore and Denver in March. We're taking February off, but really not. It's the next event in Baltimore is at the first week of March. So
yeah,
it's not like I think they're good, but I'm doing them. So Darren, you got introduced to marketing, and the importance of marketing, and I'm going to say marketing / sales, and then so you started this journey. So I'm a technician owning a managed service business. Traditionally grow my business because I've done good work, and some of my clients refer me on to others, and I'm sure your story is no different than all the other ones. Although I do appreciate the Commodore 64, that kind of dates us as being old guys now. But besides coming to our event in Vancouver and checking us out on LinkedIn, tell us now how your business kind of changed since you kind of taken Coleman from being a technology-focused company to maybe a marketing and sales company that happens to market and sell IT services.
Sure. Well, of course, when I first started as a lone tech, just because I enjoyed technology, like we just spoke about, but now, we provide, Fraser Valley, many of the small areas around us, we can provide the businesses a full IT staff at a fraction what they're paying these low-level IT managers. Our team, because I have a team now, it's not just me. We eliminate the hassles of dealing with the single knowledge and ability of the lone computer guy, which is what I was at. But now I can sort of sell against that because we have a team, and as a lone computer guy, you can only know so much. So we've taken our business from break fix to fully proactive, managing all the customers' computers and networks. And, if you've ever been through Gary Pika and True Methods and going up the stack, that's where we're at.
Yeah. So you mentioned, Gary Pika, and I have a great admiration for Gary and everything that he's done in the channel. What did you learn from, things like that? How did it change your focus on what services you provide? Because when I first met you, Darren, you had a whole laundry list of services. You did everything under the sun. How much is that? How much has changed since those days a few years ago?
Yeah, we still offer a long list of services, but now that I sort of understand Gary's method of the centralized services and the network administration, the VCIO and support, before we're spending all our time just focusing on being reactive, with support tickets and phone calls, and it's been a long journey. It's not easy to change from a break fix to a managed service provider, and it's just really difficult getting out of the area of just always jumping every time a support request comes in. So all our clients now are on some type of managed service agreement. And I tell you, it's really made life for me and my staff so much easier.
So how did you handle that transition, Darren? Because I know a lot of MSPs struggle with that transition from break fix, and it's 2018 now, and we're still dealing with the transition from break fix to managed services where, I don't want to date myself, but I think I started looking at this in 2005 when I first heard Matt Makowitz speak at Harry Brailsford's SME Nation up in Redmond. 13 years later, we're still trying to figure this out. What advice can you share with people that are listening to our podcast today?
Yeah, well, definitely, what I did is I started my top clients, and, I tried to show them ways in which it would be more beneficial for them to make the switch, from break fix, to show them, what I actually had to do is create trust. My clients trusted me, but what I wanted to do is show them how it would be better. How, by having their patch management and their antivirus and anti-spam and all the different monitoring and the automated maintenance, how that was actually going to make their life better. And how it made their life better was if they were paying for their staff to work during the day and something would break down, well, they'd have to wait a couple hours for someone to get down there. They'd be out of business. When we get there, we'd kick their staff off their computers. Now what we do is we just go behind the scene. We say, hey, we see your servers, running at capacity, your hard drive is failing, you're running out of memory, whatever it is, and we can fix those before it actually affects their business. So what we actually had to do is prove it to some of our customers. So some of our larger customers, we deal with SolarWinds Enable, and they make a great product. And what we did is we started installing it on all our customers' workstations. And we didn't build them for it at first. And then when they would call with a problem, we'd say, hey, yeah, we can send someone out there, but we can also do it this way. And we just had to build trust and start proving it to our client that this was a better way. And then, of course, there are some clients who won't convert because they don't feel they have a need or they don't value technology in the same way. And what we did is we looked at our customers based on revenue. And if they were low revenue, we basically said, in a nice way, take it or leave it.
And that's sometimes a very difficult realization to come to, where, you have to start saying no to people because they don't fit your business model. And I know, Darren, in all transparency, I struggle with that on a regular basis too. But I know I should be getting rid of some people, and I just hold on to them because I just hired that latest guy. My salary cap room is, getting awfully tight. What did you find by actually starting to move people away from Coleman that didn't necessarily fit or want to fit into your business model?
Well, what we found is that there was a lot less noise. You had a lot less panicked phone calls, a lot less emails, and it allowed us to focus on improving support for the clients that we're actually paying to keep the company going. If you look, I use QuickBooks. I don't know what other people use, but I assume a lot of people would use QuickBooks. And you look at your revenue per client, over the month or over the year. And some of the clients who are very low on revenue but create a lot of noise, sometimes you just need to walk away. And it's hard. I struggle like you do. Some of these clients I've worked with for 15, 18 years. And if they call you once or twice or a couple times a year, they're probably not a good client. Not for me anyway.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. So, okay. So, we got the service offering kind of nailed down. We started talking about marketing and sales. Now, Darren, I know you do a lot of, you have some specialties in some verticals. Probably not unlike a lot of people who we work with or in the MSP community themselves. You probably still market to everyone, or at least take business from everyone. And I know you have a couple of very specially kind of focused verticals. What have you learned by, starting to zero in on certain kind of target markets?
Yeah, so my primary vertical has always been, real estate. Mostly real estate brokerages, franchises that are basically too small to have their own IT department. They would hire us, and we've done a lot of work with some big names. And the one thing I learned from working in that vertical recently is that might not be the best vertical for us. We've recently started branching out, and we focused a lot on that vertical because that's what we knew. And we've recently started branching out to some other verticals like manufacturing, and find that they seem to be a little bit easier to deal with. With real estate, it's really dependent on how busy the office is, how much their agents are producing to how much money they're willing to spend. It's kind of like a seesaw. There's no consistency. And the other thing that I find in the real estate market is that you're answering to a lot of different people, because of course each real estate brokerage has different agents and staff, and of course the staff, they're easy to support, what their expectations are. But then you have a realtor comes and says, hey, I need to be able to print off this photocopier, I need to be able to do this. And they sort of come and go. So they make your life difficult because they phone whenever they just happen to be at the office needing support.
Yeah, so interesting that you're moving into vertical. I mean, I think that's a good market for the lower mainland, especially, giving your close proximity to a major port. So you're marketing to, unique verticals. You're realizing that some of them are, now what you got, Darren, is this almost a story of like, what got us here can't get us there, can't get you guys to the next level?
Stuart, I can't believe you said that. I had a meeting with Kevin yesterday, and we were going over some strategies coming up. And I said, Kevin, what got us to where we are isn't going to get us to where we need to be. And we just had that conversation. So that's very true. The business has to change. We have to change, and we got to continue to evolve because, technology is changing, and, we need to change with it. And it's not just technology, a lot of it is, I've said it before, trust. I've been reading Dan Kennedy's book, trust-based marketing, and we're just trying to learn and change with the industry.
Yeah, I'm a big believer of that kind of stuff too, Darren. I'm probably not an avid reader of Dan Kennedy that much, but I do follow similar type of mindsets, and I think it's very, very important that you build trust in your community. And we're going to get to the theme of today's podcast here in a second, but that kind of just sets the stage for where we want to get to, Darren, because I know you just finished speaking at Harvard recently, and I want to talk about that journey and how you got there. But I think establishing trust in your community, I want to kind of expand on that a bit more, because there is, I think a lot of IT service organizations, they know a lot. They're very technically, they know, I would put any one of my clients' technical abilities against each other, and they would all come pretty much even, but they don't get an opportunity to share that wisdom in the marketplace. So Darren, what are you guys doing to build that credibility in Langley, but also have the community establish trust with you guys and then your trust in the community.
Sure. Okay. Well, if we go back about, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I got asked to contribute to this book. There was other contributors, and, those contributors were very impressive. So, I thought to myself, am I up for the task? Because, I've never done this before. And, can I bring my A game? Can I do it? I really questioned myself. But, luckily I answered yes. And that's how I got to be a part of, Technology Press, #1 best-selling book, Easy Prey, How to Protect Your Business from Data Breach, Cybercrime, and Employee Fraud. And ultimately, the book ranked as a #1 seller in computers and technology. So what that's done for me, it's really just changed the way, my prospects and my clients, viewed me and how they view our company. It basically creates immediate authority in our conversation. It minimizes. Normally you talk about price and that sort of discussion when you meet with someone, but, as the authoritative, person, bringing, the book behind me and that I'm this technical writer, I'm not really a commodity like every other IT company. There's a differentiator.
But Darren, how would you recommend a small, and I specialize in smaller managed service businesses, so companies your size. How do you recommend a company take that first step? Because I'm sure you tripped and fall and stumbled and fumbled a little bit along the way. Now, knowing what you know now, how would you recommend a small company get started in establishing that credibility in the marketplace?
Probably the first step, even, to backtrack a little bit, before I got involved in the #1 best-selling book, I didn't have that. But one of the things that I did to gain credibility and trust was I actually had your team reach out to some of my long-term clients and created case studies. And then with those case studies, I use that in, my mail outs and my marketing and on my website. And I use them as reference points for people in similar businesses and even in dissimilar businesses to start building some trust.
So you're basically using social proof as a kind of a way to build that credibility, because what a lot of people will just do that, they're like proverbial caveman pounding their chest saying, look how great I am, where you're getting your clientele and those people that you do business with basically doing that for you. So I mean, and you know me, I'm all about case studies and testimonials and all that kind of stuff as a way. Every piece of marketing that you send out should have some sort of testimonial or customer story of success attached to it. I think that's just a great way to operate. So Darren, I planted the seed that you went to Harvard. Obviously, based on your contributions to the Easy Prey book and what you've done with that. Not every MSP is going to get an opportunity to speak at Harvard, but let's talk about speaking in general. I mean, there's always local organizations, chambers of commerce, breakfast clubs, Rotaries, Meetup.com. What are you seeing? From you and I talked about this even last week, just taking some of the material that we've done and presenting it even with some of your clients. How important is it to get in front of an audience, like, even just a small audience of, maybe a handful of people?
Yeah, very important. So your status is everything. You're the guy at the front of the room. You're the guy they're listening to, and it's elevating your status. Look, I'm a different person now than I was 6 months ago before I went to Harvard. I spoke, in front of almost 200 people. And it's just, as you said earlier, positioning. Positioning is everything. You want to position yourself as a credible, whatever you do. People listening to are IT providers or in IT in some way. So, your clients have to believe that you're the right person to come to their business and touch their equipment. And when you stand up there on stage, it doesn't have to be Harvard. Where you speak have some relevancy. The higher status the place you speak, the higher your status is interpreted as. I speak anywhere. I go to Toastmasters. I speak in front of my fellow Toastmasters. I talk about technology. They're probably tired of hearing about it. If an office says, hey, Darren, like for instance, next week, an office says, hey, we saw that LinkedIn webinar you did. Would you come and train our agent? I said, sure. Anytime I get a chance to stand in front of people and elevate my status, because as a person in the front, you were the expert. You don't want to turn that down.
And I agree. And I'm a big follower of Gary Vaynerchuk. I think I mention at least once every podcast. I really subscribe to his model of 1 is greater than 0, because you never know when that right person's going to be sitting in the audience or tuning in online. I've seen too many companies, Darren, cancel a webinar because they've had 3 registrations. So they say, you know what, screw it, we're not going to do it. And I've had companies host webinars with 3 registrations and closed a $250,000 deal because that one person that happened to be on that webinar was the right person to hear that message. So, I mean, I applaud you for, your advice here on, getting out and speaking to as many people as you want, because again, you never know who's going to be sitting in that audience.
Speaking, you said you've had some clients that they cancel, not enough people show up. I've done webinars, I've done like Tech Tuesdays, I've done different things on Facebook Live. And, sometimes it shows that people aren't there. And I've seen that people actually are there. And, even the last webinar we did, I live streamed it. There wasn't very many people watching the live stream. But when I went into the office and I talked to different people who I had mentioned about the live stream, they said, yeah, we had it on. So, sometimes the statistics, for whatever reason, especially with Facebook, they don't necessarily recognize each person who's there. And I can tell you, I've gotten work, from Facebook, and I'm pretty sure it was from one of the Tech Tuesdays I did. And I can tell you, I don't have a huge audience, but people see it, and it's good practice. It's good practice.
People tuning in live to this podcast are, right now, not very many. But I can tell you, I've been doing this podcast now on Blog Talk Radio here, and by the way, I'm in conversation with Deron Coleman from Coleman Technologies. I've been doing this podcast, Darren, for 11 years now on Blog Talk Radio, and I have almost six figures of people who have listened to at least one episode. So it grows over time as well. That's what I love about the internet today. Unlike old time radio where it was, sure, you may have lots of listeners listening to you on the Vancouver local radio station. I can't remember what the news channel is there now. It's been too long since I've been out there. You may not get all those people listening to you on a live stream now, but I can tell you over time those numbers go up. And I still get calls today, 5 or 6 years after I've done a webcast, where people say, I listened to your webcast on such and such thing, and I'm going, oh, what did I do that on? And it's remarkable how long of a lifespan these type of online events have, but also memories of people listening to you speak. I still have people coming and say, I saw you speak at an event in 2013. I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now. Can we talk? So, that is super, super important there to get out and talking to people. So let's talk about that journey to Harvard. How did that opportunity present itself?
Okay, yeah, funny, I get asked that question all the time. And just before this conversation, I actually had another interview I just did with a friend of mine, Clint Arthur. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's written several books, The Speaking Game, 21 Performances of Donald Trump. He's got a lot of different books. And mostly you write books, not necessarily because people are going to read them, just because, it elevates your status. It's a little bit different than a brochure, right? I was having a conversation with him, and I met him at another event that I attend sometimes in Nashville. And I had an opportunity because he was looking for speakers, and I had just contributed to the book. So it was a perfect opportunity for me to speak about my experience with the book and speak to my journey, and also network with a lot of other individuals in different fields. So it was it was an opportunity that just sort of presented itself, and it was a great honor that I got to participate in that business expert forum at the Harvard Faculty Club. I'm so grateful I did it, and if I had the opportunity to do it again, I would.
Because I know you thought about that long and hard, because you had a family vacation coming up like the next day, right? It was in Hawaii or something?
Yeah. So the issue was, at the time when I needed to speak, I was supposed to be on a flight with my wife and my 3 children to Hawaii for that week. So in order to make it work, I literally added the width of the continent twice, to the itinerary in order to have that speech. But I knew that it was something that was going to elevate my status. It was something that it wasn't like any other speech. It was something that we were going to be able to bring forward. And I knew in my relationship with Stewart and Eulistic, it would be something that you guys were going to be able to help me leverage in our marketing efforts. So, I thought long and hard about it, and I spoke to my wife, and lucky for me, she was understanding, and I got on the phone with the airlines, and I made it work, because sometimes, things aren't always going to be easy, but the more effort you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. And yeah, like I said, it's something was a great honor. And I'm glad I was able to participate.
So, but how did the folks at Harvard source you? Was it because of the book, Darren, that got their attention?
No, it was because of my relationship with Clint. He was the organization behind the event.
Gotcha. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay. Now I'm putting it together. That makes sense. So yeah, great. So that's fantastic. Now you're right. Not every MSP is going to get an opportunity to speak at a school like Harvard. But, I like what you said. You made it work. You could have said, no, I'm on a plane with my family on vacation, but you worked it into your schedule somehow. And too many people, especially, I mean, it's not unique just to managed services, Darren, but I see a lot in the managed service business that they turn down an interview on the local TV or be interviewed by a journalist because of the fact that they're too busy working with a problem with a server, a client meeting or something like that. Once you turn down the journalist, you know what? They never call you back. So I know you've got a lot of PR coverage too. And I mean, if you were just on a podcast before this one, that's 2 in one day. So, what media tips can you share with our listeners today?
Well, probably the biggest tip is, just be persistent. Before I went to Harvard, I made sure I wanted everyone to know about it because no one's going to be a bigger fan for you than yourself. So I made sure, I think it was through Eulistic, I probably had one of you guys help me. We submitted to the local papers, and I ended up being in the Langley Times, the Langley Advance, and some other paper. They did a story on me. And basically, anytime I do anything, like if we win an award, if we're mentioned on a notable site, I make sure that I let people know about it. And it's just persistent because you email the newspaper that you've done something, they get a lot of emails and phone calls. And you just have to be persistent. And if it's something you believe in, you might be able to get them to publish the story. And now you're published in the newspaper. I've also been published in some prominent online sources. And it's just because I've worked with some of the right people who know people behind different publications. And, it's just really aligning with the right people. And sometimes you have to spend the time to figure out who those people are.
And sometimes, Darren, it's not even about yourself. Because when I was in Calgary, for example, or when I lived in Calgary, I'm kind of like you. I was kind of all over the media. What I learned, I actually had a friend of mine, David Boucher, who was a reporter at Global TV in Calgary. And I ran into him at the airport one time, and I said, David, you stopped calling me or emailing me. What's going on? He said, Stuart, keep emailing me. I get all of your stuff, and I review it every single time you do. But, sometimes I get outvoted on what stories they're going to cover that day. But if I was like the average person, I would get deflated on that and say, you know what, these guys aren't calling me. I'm going to stop emailing David because he's not getting back to me. But what I found is that persistence pays off. I remember, pitching stories. So, one of the things I also learned is don't necessarily pitch it all about you all the time. Figure out what's trending in the marketplace and then pitch that. So let's say the new ransomware that comes out that takes down 80% of the business computers in Canada, Darren. Well, guess what? I would be pitching that day. What this new ransomware is and how to protect it. I've done things with Windows 7 launches, Vista launches, I'm dating myself here, and getting on local TV. I've done things about when Groupon was a big craze, and my MSP didn't support Groupon kind of stuff, but the media saw me as a technology specialist, and it was a technology-related thing. So guess who they called to interview? I must have did 5 interviews that day about Groupon, Darren. It was unbelievable. But you know what? We grew a very profitable, successful MSP business, and if it's working for you and it worked for me, I can't see why you wouldn't try it at least try it and persevere and be persistent with it. So kudos to you, Darren, for having that vision and that insight. What else have we had covered yet with this? Your media and your speaking opportunities. Is there anything else? Any other tips you can share with us?
Yeah, just back to before, speak anywhere you can. I've been asked coming up here, will I go to the senior center and speak on technology? They didn't even really give me a topic. They said, hey, we need speakers. More seniors are using, the internet and email. Will you come and speak? I'm not getting paid for it, but I said, sure, because at minimum, it's going to make me more educated on my subject. It's going to make me a better speaker. And like you said, you never know. You just need that one individual who has that connection for you. I speak on Facebook Live when I have the time, and I did some conversations on cybersecurity. And I got called out to some big firms out in Vancouver to do cybersecurity audit. And I wasn't speaking directly to them, but they happened to be listening. Someone at that firm said, hey, we need to get insurance. We have an in-house IT guy. The insurance says let's get someone from outside, and I've got a connection. But I wasn't speaking directly to them. So you never know where your opportunity is going to come from.
Exactly. So I come back to what I said. One is greater than zero, Darren. One is greater than zero. And you know what? It's funny. I used to fly down to Phoenix. Well, not Phoenix, the south of Phoenix, a small town called Casa Grande. And my folks lived there for a few years. In the wintertime, they were snowbirds down there. And I used to go down there every year and speak to the seniors group of people in their community on just, hey, here's all the things you need to know about for computers and, online. And that was, again, 10 years ago. I can't say, besides a few book sales, because I was a, inspiring author back then, besides a few book sales and, the experience, it really didn't relate to any direct business that I could, connect the dots. But that's what marketing is. Sometimes marketing, you can't connect the dots. You can't say this one thing netted this new referral. Sometimes you get lucky and you can, but I think it's a cumulative effort, Darren, and maybe you can talk on that a little bit. You have to do everything and kind of, and look at your marketing as an umbrella. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Just back to your story there before I talk about that. Last year, I flew to Palm Springs. I quite often spend, the spring break time down there because my wife's a teacher. Someone said, can you help my friend out? And I thought, well, I don't really want to be working while I'm down there, but I went to his house. I set up his Exchange email, something that's not too difficult for me to do. When I got back, he said, he has a 200-person company here in my local area. So it's a pretty large business. And that got me in the door to be able to come speak to the people running the company. Now I'm still working on that contract. Even though I don't like to do break fix, I've done some break fix work because the contract would make it worthwhile. But I would have never had an opportunity to go into a 200-person company had I not just taken every opportunity to just connect with someone who I thought would have no relevance. I was just doing what I like to do because, like you said, when I started, technology, I got involved in it because I like fix. I wanted to mention that story based on your travel that you just had mentioned. But as far as the marketing, sometimes I don't know what my return on investment is. When I buy these copies of books that I hand out, or, now recently I got a magazine I hand out. I have all this stuff, Ulistics done for me, all these different ebooks. I don't know what the return on investment is, but I know that my income has grown every month that I've invested in marketing. So as long as I'm making more money as I continue to market, I'm going to continue to market.
Yeah, and so but you also have to have the sales back end to work on those businesses, because a lot of people get confused on what marketing's role and what sales role is there. And that could be a conversation for another time. But, unlike others, Darren, you're out there and you're working it. Like, you're taking all that marketing material that you have, the blogs, the newsletters, the print materials. You're out in the trenches working it every single day. You're not sitting, you're doing what it takes. If it's a Facebook Live video or something else, you're doing what it takes to create that awareness. And I think that's often a step that a lot of people miss. They think they put a website up and they're going to sit back and get 90 leads. I don't think that's necessarily the case these days. There's too much competition. So are you seeing that your marketing efforts are creating separation between you and your competitors now?
Well, yeah, the marketing definitely is bringing in the leads, but ultimately it's up to you to sell to those leads. So, I encourage everyone listening, if they're not involved in something like Gary Pika and True Methods, or even before True Methods, Chartech has an amazing program. You really always need to be investing in yourself and your team. And, years ago when I first started, maybe it's because I didn't have the money, or maybe it was because I was too cheap. I didn't invest in myself. I didn't invest in my team. I didn't invest in marketing, and I didn't see any return, and why should I? So just definitely invest in marketing, invest in your training, and invest in your team. And
I also like what you said, you have to invest in yourself. That's critical, your own self-learning as well. Like, I love that you're reading books by Dan Kennedy and others, because I think that's super important, that, that you're continuously sharpening your saw, Darren, over time to get better at what you do. Because, you and I've been in the business for way too long. We still today, after 25 some years in this industry, I still don't have the answers to every question. And, and learning and developing your own skills is something that, you have to keep on working on. Just like this, this skill thing that I'm creating, I didn't know anything about it. I had to, research it and everything else, but, close now to getting it done. And that's another marketing angle that, we can look at. Any Darren, any last minute closing comments you want to make to our podcast group today? Listening either live or many years down the road.
Just basically what I just said, Stuart. You have to invest in yourself and your team. Pick up a book. There's so many of them written for managed services. There's so many training programs out there. Like I said, with the Chartec and the Gary Pica's True Method, and that's going to allow you to, if people are utilizing Ulistic or other services, when the leads come in, you're actually going to be able to close them, because if you get leads that you can't close, then you're just throwing your money away. So definitely make sure that they're investing in their education.
Excellent, Darren. Thanks again for taking some time out of your busy day. I know lots is going on there in beautiful British Columbia. I'm hoping one day soon I'll be out there. I think I'm actually coming close to your neck of the woods there in June. I'm going to be up in Seattle, but I don't think I'll be coming up any further north for a while. Actually, I do have family on the Vancouver Island, so I may have to get up there this year somehow. But Darren, it's always a pleasure to chat with you, and thanks for sharing your journey with Coleman Technologies, and for people who want to check out Darren's website, you can. You just point your browser to Coleman Technologies. I'm just going to remember what ColemanTechnologies.com, and check out some of the stuff. I think we got a new website in the works for coming out here in early to mid 2018. If you want to check out Darren's book Easy Pray, you can fill in the form right on his website there, and I'm sure you'll be able to get a copy through his website at ColemanTechnologies.com. Darren, again, always a pleasure. I would say good luck in the future, but I know I'm going to be talking to you very soon, once the weekend's over and we get settled back in after our trip to Houston and Dallas.
Very good, Stuart. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks again, everyone.